them up, and they just love them. So thank you all so much. You made 3 boys. Thank you, and families
Birthday
just.
boy.
Pardon?
Birthday boy.
I know. Anthony's birthday today.
So you know what?
Hey, happy birthday!
I got on the 30th.
You want to go to Culver's with him? We'll buy you lunch. Okay, you want to go to Culver's with? We'll let you buy our lunch. So thank you all so much. You know, I've had several people say to me, those boys will never forget that. And I think they're right. And I'm just praying for Albie and his mom and dad. They're not believers. You know, this was be an inroad into meeting them and witnessing to them. So, but Albie, he's such a quiet little guy. He never says anything. He was so talkative. And but thank you all for your generosity. And they were just so thrilled. They could not believe it. So, yeah, I know Donna put some out there on Facebook if you've not seen them. And so, thank you. And big thank you. I kind of got the glory, you know, because I'm with the boys and with the parents and everything. I said, it wasn't me, you know, it was my whole class. And so, God bless you. And maybe in a little while, we'll do another project if you're interested.
Yeah.
Sure. I've got something in mind, but we'll wait a little bit. We want to tap you all out and bankrupt you. So, but God bless you. It was such a wonderful thing to be part of. So,
Thanks for you for spearheading the project.
really, it just came from a conversation with David. He's seventh grade. He's the youngest. And he said to me several times, I really wish I had a bike. I had a bike back in the Philippines, and I really miss it. And I just, light bulb went on.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do this. And then you all graciously expanded it to the 3rd boy, Albert. And so, yeah, it's working together. It was wonderful. So that's glad to be part of it. All right. Don't forget, did we say the 3rd Saturday of February, we're all going to lunch? Okay, 3rd Saturday of February, we are going to Queen Creek Barbecue at noon. Okay? At noon. Queen Creek Barbecue at noon. I'll do a flyer for that as a reminder. We keep that on your calendar, and we'll go have some barbecue.
Where's Queen Creek Barbecue at?
It's almost at the corner of Ocotillo and Ellsworth.
Oh,
Like if you're heading down Ocotillo, you get to Ellsworth, turn right, and then on your left, there's a few little buildings there, and one of them's Queen Creek Barbecue, and we're working on the family there. They met them. Robert is the father, and Rayla, his daughter, works as a waitress there. And you say, oh, we're looking for a Baptist church. But we got a Baptist church for you. So I'm trying to get them to come.
I have a song stuck in my head. I am in the Lord's army.
There you go.
Oh.
So we'll flood his place on that Saturday. And if necessary, we'll kidnap him and hold him on until Sunday so he's here. But just pray for Robert and his family that they'll come. They said they're interested. So we could go there and visit them. So be on your best behavior.
oh,
When is it?
how boring.
They're about to stay back up.
Yeah.
So, okay. Just behave.
She's
Don't be
already,
too
she's
wild.
already threatened to
It's the
muzzle
3rd
me.
Saturday of
She's
February.
writing it
I don't
up.
know the date. 21st. Any questions on anything? All right, let me get some people coming in. So we'll let them come in and finish my attendance. I don't often get to check off Teresa and Carter,
Bye.
so. Howdy. There are notes out there on the table?
She's grabbing.
Okay,
some,
there's two different
She's a coming.
two different ones side by side. Okay. All right. Good to see you.
yeah. Guess what I did this morning? Quit my job.
Wow.
Just so I could be here.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh, I am so humble.
You should be honored.
Now you know our
I'll buy you
social
an ice
security
cream.
checks are.
Thank you, because now
Oh, I have a coupon.
All right. So now when we're done, we got to take up an offering, a retirement offering.
What are you talking about? We're not going to get our social security checks now because he's not working.
Oh, somebody's got to pay for that.
That's right.
Get back to work.
This is a brutal group. It is.
Especially when you get some muscle.
You retired?
Yeah.
Really? Well, they're getting younger and younger when they retire.
I know, what's wrong with them?
Oh, but everybody's getting younger.
I know. Have you seen the doctors?
Little kids.
Yeah.
Ruby Holger or whatever his name was.
Well, I didn't watch that show either, but I know what you mean. I like seeing that.
Oh, you do?
Oh, I do.
Because
I do stuff.
I guess I
You see what I gotta put together.
I see that.
Now, Bubba. Good morning. How you doing?
Across the square.
Amen, brother.
Right here. So, did you talk with him about his job?
I did.
She knows.
You signed off on it?
So is the plan now, Ramona's got to get a job?
Or are you just
Probably.
As
gonna,
long as it doesn't happen on Thursday morning.
There you go.
so you're gonna be showing your blood, right?
Yeah. Plasma.
Plasma every week.
All right, good morning. Everybody have notes?
Morning.
Okay, all right. Do I have notes?
You're supposed to know this.
They're out there on
know.
the table, Rick.
Thank you. Put them away. Okay, what I want to do is finish up our lesson from the last couple weeks. And I want you to go back to high school or college biology. How many had biology in high school? Okay, well, a lot of us did. I did too my freshman year. And so we want to go back to that time period and think about high school biology, because today, you ready? We're going to talk about ontology recapitulates phylogeny.
Huh?
You got that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember
Of
that?
course.
Yeah, so,
The
okay.
only thing I got was unresolved.
Okay, one of the things that I want to do is in this lesson as we go through creation, because you know that we live in a world that believes very, very much in evolution. And they go to great lengths to promote that in school, not just high school, even before high school, and certainly in college. Lee Strobel, in his book that I'm reading on the case for the Creator, talks about he was raised in a religious home, but as he went through high school, and the school was teaching evolution, and as he went through college, they convinced him. And so one of the things that convinced him is what we're going to talk about today for just a little bit. And he became convinced evolution was true. If you have evolution, you don't need God. So he became an atheist. And many, many years later, his wife got saved, I think, at a Billy Graham crusade. And he was not happy about that. So he was like an investigative reporter, very intelligent guy who worked for the Chicago Tribune. So he set out to prove to his wife that Christianity is not true. It's just a myth. And in the course of his investigation, he realized it is true. And he became a Christian. And so he wrote about that in a book called The Case for Christ, about his experience and his research into that. And so then he's written several books, The Case for Faith, The Case for Christmas, and The Case for Creator. And so in his book for The Case for Creator, he's interviewing scientists about evolution and what are the proofs of evolution, and are there any proofs for creation? Well, of course there are proofs for creation. The Bible says that the heavens, in Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. Creation screams out, there is a creator. And so, but the scientific world, to a great extent, believes in evolution and will go to great lengths to present that. So do you think that all scientists are totally honest, above any deception, and scientists are just interested in the facts? You think that's true?
Yes.
Absolutely not. So they are not, they're people. They are people. Well, many years ago, back in the 1800s, there was a guy by the name of Ernst Haeckel, and Darwin, who came up with the idea, the mechanism for evolution, was struggling particularly with the fossil record. You know, where's the fossils that show that, you know, the small little creature here developed into this much bigger, sophisticated creature over here? They weren't finding anything. And so Ernst Haeckel was a guy who came up with this idea about embryos. Okay, so in our notes on that first page 5, that second paragraph under Icons of Evolution. By the way, I'm reading also a book called Icons of Evolution. An icon is something that really promotes something else. It stands out in that. And so there are icons. There are things that are presented as proofs for evolution that are put in biology books and taught by scientists. And one of them is called Haeckel's embryos. You know what an embryo is, okay? And so way back in 1868, they didn't have cameras back then, so he couldn't photograph these embryos, so he had to draw them, okay? And what you would do in drawing is like you take a piece of wood and you would draw it, and then that would be your plate, and then you could ink it and make pictures. And that's what he did. And he said, lo and behold, as I study embryos, and he chose several animals, okay, all of them mammals. And he chose the embryo of a fish. Well, that's not a mammal. A salamander, a tortoise, a chick, a hog, a calf, a rabbit, and a human. He said, when I looked at these embryos of these different animals, they all looked exactly the same. Okay? Well, that was interesting. Why would they all look the same? Okay? That's ontology. All right? That's the word ontology. Ontology is the study of embryos. And so he said, all these embryos of these different animals all look the same. But as they begin to develop in the egg or womb, that's when they begin to change into the creatures that they became. And so the fish, the salamander, the tortoise, the chick, the hog, the calf, the rabbit, and the human, they all started out the same, looking identical. But as time went by, over weeks or months, then that embryo began to change into, a calf or a human. Why would that happen? Okay, so that's where now phylogeny is talking about the animals that they became. So ontology, that's the embryo at the very start, okay, repeats phylogeny, recapitulates. So what he's saying is they all start out the same. They are presenting a picture of evolution. These embryos are. From when they're conceived until they're born, they are demonstrating a picture that they all started off the same. And Darwin got a hold of that and said, okay, here's more evidence that evolution is true. Because you and I, they would say we've evolved from monkeys. Where did monkeys evolve from? So what he was saying is all these creatures, the fish, the salamander, the tortoise, the chick, the hog, the calf, the rabbit, and the human, they all started from the same creature millions and millions of years ago. And through time, they developed into these various animals. And lo and behold, they're, as embryos, they repaint that picture for us. How amazing that evolution would do that. Isn't evolution amazing? Evolution is like a miracle worker. I've read where scientists have said that. And so that's what this is all about. Then you can see the pictures. It's not a very good printout, but on page 6 at the top, they all look the same. Okay? That's the ontology. That's the picture of all these animals. They look the same. And then as time went by, they began to develop and change into a variety of creatures. And you can see that in the middle and certainly in the bottom. And so when he presented that truth, man, the scientific world and the press got a hold of that and said, look, this is a picture of evolution happening, every time these creatures are born, every time that they're, when they're first made. And they got a hold of that and ran with that. And so these pictures and this story has been put in biology books ever since. And you know what? It was all a lie. It was all a lie. Because what Ernst Haeckel did was he drew them the way he wanted them to be. Okay? Some of them, he took the same, so he had all these creatures, so he had to make different carvings. And he said, here's the fish, I'll carve that one in a piece of wood. Here's the salamander, I'll carve that. As he looked at them, okay, he's carving them. But he didn't. He lied about it. Some of them were just the same carving. Some he made exactly like the rest. And even some people of his day ridiculed him and said, this is not true. But the scientific world wanted evolution to be so true that they latched onto it, and the press latched onto it, and textbook writers latched onto it as proof of evolution and promoted that. And the sad thing is, they're still in textbooks today. They're still in textbooks today. And you can see on page 5, the third paragraph up from the bottom, the problem is that these drawings were a fraud. In some cases, Haeckel used the same woodcut to print embryos that were supposedly from different animals. In others, he doctored his drawings to make the embryos appear more alike than they really were. Haeckel's contemporaries repeatedly criticized him for these drawings that were not true, and yet he just ignored it. Yes? Yeah, at the bottom of the page. You don't have a page number?
Just a single page.
Oh, this,
I was looking at page 5 here.
Okay, that's today's. As soon as I'm done with that, we're going to get into that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so even many of his contemporaries, but many enthusiastically accepted and promoted his drawings, that they were often used in textbooks. By the way, did you ever hear of a fossil, a human fossil called Piltdown Man? Anybody ever heard of that one? Okay, Piltdown Man was a fossil that was found and promoted as like a missing link between monkeys and humans, okay? And later on, they found out it was all a lie. Somebody had doctored it all to make it look old and make it look human. So scientists are not above presenting lies to the world just because they're so sure that evolution is true. It's okay if we fudge the truth, to present that.
I was thinking about the chromosome differences between ape and man. That's when the scientists really said this proves
Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah,
Is that a big,
yeah, that's what they would say, and I'll talk about that in one of the lessons. Chimpanzee and a human's very similar in DNA, and so why do we need to talk about this? Okay, so here's my thinking, and you can read the rest of that, because since then, and since they now have cameras and they can take pictures of these embryos, and they've discussed, they're nothing alike. They're nothing alike at the beginning. And so the scientific world says, no, this is not true, but they're still printed in textbooks today and being taught to kids in high school and even younger. And so why do I want to include that? Because, now we're not raising our kids anymore, but we have grandkids for the most part, and we know kids. And, years ago, we didn't have answers. Our kids would come home from school, and say, hey, look what's in my biology book, and this is what my professor is teaching. And we would look at that and say, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But the truth is, today we do have answers. And so I just want to give you, the way I look at it, as another tool in your toolbox, that if this comes up, you can say to a grandchild or a neighbor or whatever, that's not right. And there is proof that it's not right. You can't just accept that because their thinking is, Well, my teacher's teaching it at school. It's in the textbook. It's got to be true. And we should be able to tell them it's not true, and that we have answers now for some questions that people didn't have years ago. So I wanted to finish that. That was in the last lesson. Any questions on that?
Which ones of the embryo evolved? The weaker one or the stronger one?
Survival of the
We
fittest?
still had the salamander. So is that the weaker gender, or I mean the weaker of the species?
It's just a salamander. It started as a salamander. God created a salamander.
And it stayed
It stays the salamander. There is no such thing as evolution, the Bible says. And that's what we're looking at. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so we're moving through the days of creation. Any other? Is that too much? Is that too confusing, Carlos?
So, so it's a safe bet to say that all these people who believe in evolution are not believers.
Well, like Lee Strobel, and what he would say is he's known so many people that evolution led them to be atheists, that evolution convinced them there is no God. But, and we'll talk about this as we go along, there are people who say that they're Christians who believe in what's called theistic evolution. Okay? Yeah, God started it. You know, it's like, and the analogy is, it's like God made a snowball at the top of a hill, a lot of snow, made a snowball, set it down and rolled it. And as it rolls down the hill, it just picks up speed and makes bigger and bigger. So God started everything, but then he used evolution to bring it to where it is today. I think that is totally against what the Bible teaches. But I think by far the most part of people who believe in evolution, from what I've read, don't believe in God. So sadly. And the world and Satan is using the lie of evolution to convince people. They don't need to look any further. So just to let you know, scientists are not above lying to make a point. So anything else? All right, let's get on to our lesson. Okay. This one will be page 1. All right. We're on creation, the first day. So again, we know in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, and the Holy Spirit was hovering above the waters. The planet was covered with water. So the Word of God reveals to mankind the question, how did the cosmos, or the universe, come into existence? You know, that's a big question with cosmology, of where did it all come from? I've been doing a little bit of reading about it. And you've heard of the Big Bang Theory, probably? Okay. Well, that was, I was wondering, okay, what they say, it started with this ball of matter, so dense, packed together, that some reason it exploded, and there was so much material in that, and they say about the size of a soccer ball, okay? It was so densely packed together when it exploded, it had enough material in it to create the universe. Billions and billions of galaxies filled with billions and billions of stars, and the solar system, and there are other solar systems out there, and wow. You ever pack a suitcase and you got more than you think you could get in there? Man, whoever packed that soccer ball, you know, did a great job.
Going through TSA.
Pardon?
They go to open up you travel internationally,
Yeah.
and you go through customs.
Yeah.
And they could open that suitcase. You're never going to get it.
I know. Oh, you got to tell them, stand back. So, but that's what they say. But God tells us in the beginning, God did this. He created, and he begins to show us how. God created everything by divine fiat. What does that mean? He said it. Let there be, and there was. And so he tells us in verse 1 that God created the universe. He created outer space. The darkness of space so vast that we haven't developed a telescope yet to see all of it. But it was empty, except for one planet. And that was this planet, the planet Earth. And it was covered with water, and everything was dark, though. They couldn't see anything. And by the way, you know, scriptures show us that the Big Bang Theory doesn't work because in the Big Bang Theory, everything started with this soccer ball that exploded and then began to expand out, and it's still expanding. But that's not true, because on the first day, God only created the blackness of space, one planet. He's not going to create the stars and the sun and the moon and the planets until day 4. So in the beginning, on day 1, he just created the blackness of space, and then he created this planet, and then on day 1, he's going to create light. So he did all of that. Job 38 says, there, the second paragraph after the introduction, God talking to Job, and he says, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." Okay, so that's talking about God creating, and the angels watched God create and began to sing and shout for joy. The question is, when did God create the angels? Well, I think he created on day 1. And I think, well, originally everything was dark, so you couldn't see anything. I wonder if they shouted and sang when God created light, and then they saw this planet there. Okay? But the angels were there, and they're watching God do this. Well, God goes on in verses 3 through 5 to talk more about day 1. The divine proclamation, when it says, "And God said." Genesis 1:1 informs us that in the beginning God created. How did he do it? Well, he's so powerful. Now, you and I, we're used to watching shows. I don't know about you, but growing up, I was a big fan of Star Trek. Anybody else watch Star Trek, the original series? And then The Next Generation. You remember The Next Generation, Q? Remember the character of Q? Okay, Q was like omnipotent, and his whole race was like that. He just could snap his fingers or say something, and it was there. So we're used to seeing things like that on TV and science fiction and fantasy, but it's not real. You know how I know? I tried it. I really did with my granddaughter one time. Let's make something. I was teaching her about this. We got nowhere. But God is a being who is omnipotent. He is all powerful. Jesus asked the question, is there anything too hard for God? He can do the impossible. And he is a being who started time, who started the universe, who started the earth, who started everything on the earth, and started us. And he can do it just by speaking. And so, really, that ought to encourage us in our prayer life. Are you convinced that God can do anything? Is there anything too hard for God? Then we ought to ask him. I've gotten in a habit for years and years now. I try to ask God about everything. I have 3 kids. My 2 sons are polar opposites of each other. My oldest son, Jeremy, he was just such an easygoing guy, so much like his mother. Just such an easygoing person, who just accepted what you told him. He never really gave us any trouble. Now, my son Jonathan, and some of you know Jonathan, Jonathan was a little different. And Jonathan was not afraid to ask for what he wanted. Jeremy, he just really didn't. But Jonathan, he did. And so he would ask. And you know what? There's no doubt in my mind, I probably did a lot more for those kids because Jonathan asked me to. And the Bible tells us in James chapter 4, we receive not because we ask not. You didn't ask God, so he didn't do it. Ask him. He can do anything, everything. So I ask for big things. I ask for little things. I constantly pray when, especially if I got Donna. It doesn't matter for me, but Donna's got really bad knees, and so I have a handicap placard for my car, and I always pray, Lord, would you give us a close parking spot? And so one day, I don't think it was Donna, it was somebody else, and they said, oh, God's not answering your prayer today. And I said, not yet. So I drove around a couple times, came back, the very first spot was open. Okay, well, Lord, what was that all about? Maybe he's teaching me patience. I don't know. But I've seen God answer that prayer so many, many, many times. And if he doesn't, I don't want to be where are you, God? He's done it so many times, but learn to ask God. This ought to encourage us that our God can do anything. He works miracles. I think I told some of you before, there was a man in my church back in Indiana that was in the hospital. He actually tried to take his own life. He was in the hospital. And so I went there when I got word his wife was there, and the doctors came out and said, we don't think there's any brain activity. We'll give him till tomorrow, and then we're going to pull the plug. And she just broke down. This is on a Wednesday. And I told her, I said, the doctors don't have the final say. I said, tonight's prayer meeting, I'm going to go back. We're going to put this on the prayer chain. We're going to pray tonight for your husband. And, God can do anything. Don't you read in the Bible, God raised the dead? I went back the next day, sitting up in bed. They told us he was pretty much brain dead. He's sitting up in bed. He's still alive today. And that was many years ago. And so that may be one of the greatest prayers I've ever seen God answer. Now, I had a situation where there was a friend of my son, his mother was in the hospital and she was dying. And I went there to see her and see them. And we're talking in the waiting room. And I told him this story. And he looked at me and goes, do you think God will heal her? I said, I don't know. I just am a beggar. I just beg God. I just ask God. It's up to him whether he answers or not. And she died within a day or two. God said no that time. We have to accept yes, and we have to accept no. God has his purposes.
My mother, back in 1992, had a perforated ulcer. She developed peritonitis, went into septic shock, and was in a coma. She stayed in that coma for, I think, about 4 months, at which point the doctors came to my aunt and myself and said that there was nothing more that they could do. She was on a ventilator. They were feeding her IV, and my mom had a living will. She said she did not want to stay connected. So we made that decision to take her off support. 24 hours later, she woke up from that coma, and she immediately recognized everybody, and the doctors fell over because they said her EEG was flatline.
Yeah.
That's why they call it practicing medicine. They haven't gotten it down right yet.
Well, they don't account for God. God can do it. God can do anything. And so that's why we ought to trust him, believe in him, and ask him to do things for us. So he's all powerful. He spoke, and everything there is came into existence. So the divine proclamation, and God said, what did he say? The divine declaration, let there be light. Because up until this point, there was darkness in the universe. No, the one planet in the universe in the darkness of space, you couldn't see it. I mean, obviously God could see it because he can see everything. And that's where I wonder if when the light came on and the angel saw, the creation of God there in the planet, maybe that's when they shouted for joy and began to sing. I wonder what they were singing, what song they were singing. But that's just, it doesn't say when exactly, but I just wondered, if when God turned on the light, they were there. So God spoke, commanded the light to appear, and it did. In the vast blackness of the universe, suddenly light began to shine upon the earth, and the planet was visible. Maybe that's when the angels began to sing. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, what is light? I never questioned that really before when God said, let there be light. Okay. I mean, I kind of did that when I came in here today. I didn't say it. I flipped the switch and the light came on. Okay. I don't fully understand how electricity works in a light bulb a little bit. And, but there wasn't anything God used. But so when it says he created light, what did he really create? Well, it's an electromagnetic radiation that travels in waves composed of photons acting as both a wave and a particle. And it's the energy that stimulates sight, allowing us to see the world within the narrow visible spectrum of light. When I think of light, I think of just like a bright light. Okay. A lot of times I'm taking the girls, my granddaughters, to school in the morning. Isabel sees the dawn and she says, "Look, it's a rainbow." Well, it's not really a rainbow. It's just different colored a little bit because of and Juliet will always say to it, "That is not a rainbow." I thought, oh, what a killjoy. And yes, it is. So, but we know what a rainbow, rainbow is light that's been, split into different colors. That's all light. Hey, most nights I go out looking for scorpions. You ever go looking for a scorpion? You know what you use? Huh? A black light. Okay. If you go out with just a flashlight, you're not going to really see them. But if you go out with a black light, they glow in black light. They glow in the dark like they're radioactive, But that's still a spectrum of light. So when God says he created light, he did more than just create the sunshine we think of in that sense. Light is part of a vast spectrum, including radio waves, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays, differing in wavelength and energy. It's essential for life, powering photosynthesis in plants, where they take carbon dioxide and make that into what they need to live. And it moves incredibly fast. And all of this God created with a spoken word, let there be light. And there was more than just the brightness of light. We understand, apparently, when he created light, he created this vast spectrum so that scientists have been able to discover different aspects of light. Don't you appreciate your microwave oven? I sure do. We use it a lot more than we use our oven. And but that was there, I think, in that creation when he created light. And yet it took many thousands of years for man to discover that part of light. But it was there all along. I wonder who first found out that black lights, show scorpions. Somebody did, and created a black light. First time I went to Home Depot, I said, "You guys have black lights, like a little flashlight?" He goes, "You mean a scorpion light?" And I said, "Yeah." And so that was a little one. Now I have a big one. And I'm thinking about one that hooks up to the back of my car in a trailer, shine the whole neighborhood, And so, because, hey, this is the desert. This is where they live.
That might scare you.
It might, because sometimes I'll tell Donna, if you hear me scream or something, they ganged up on me. And I have killed over 460 scorpions in a little over 2 years. And so they are around. They are around. But I do, just to let you know, I do my house, 3 neighbors next to me, and Dave and Jermaine Marsh, if you know them. I do Dave's house, and Dave bought his house a year ago. It was infested. The first night we went out, me and my son, we killed 28. And that was only because we ran out of scorpion spray. And every night that week, we killed 20-something. Now we're down to 1 every week or something, or almost nothing right now because of the weather, the coolness, but they're around. So sorry if I've give you the heebie-jeebies or scare you, but I often pray, Lord, don't let it get in your house. Don't let the girls get stung, especially. But I was stung one night at my son's house. So anyway, all of that is there, in God's creation, let there be light. Yes, sir.
You need my address?
Well, my son was telling me, do you remember the series Batman back in the 60s?
Yeah.
The bat light that they could shine, up in the sky to alert him. He said, maybe you need to contact Queen Creek and they can shine that light wherever they need you to show up of a scorpion. That's right. Yeah. For my birthday, I think my daughter, Rosemary, bought me a T-shirt that says, I think it says Scorpion Killer with a big scorpion on it. and it glows in the dark. The shirt does. So sometime I'll have to wear it here. But anyway, so all of that was created. When God said, let there be light, he did so much more than just give us a bright light that we normally understand with light. And God is so wise. Not only is he powerful, but he is so wise in his creation and all that he puts together and how it works. It's just amazing. The light that God created was not the sun of our solar system. Do you ever think about that? On day one, when God said, let there be light, he didn't create the sun. He didn't create the sun until day 4. What light is this? Did he create like a giant flashlight hanging out there in space on the earth? Because that's where it was focused on the earth. Did you ever think about that? What light are we talking about? That God created light. So it was not the sun of our solar system or the stars of the universe, for they didn't get created day 4, but the Bible's silent on the source of this light. It will shine on the earth for 3 days until day 4, and then apparently it's gone. So what was that temporary light? Big enough to shine on the planet that began to create day and night cycles on this planet. Throughout history, there's been a lot of theories about this light source. Rabbis writing in a book called the Midrash around 500 AD, they believed it was the physical manifested. You ever heard of the word Shekinah or Shekinah, glory of God? Okay. I always said Shekinah, but I met this Jewish guy who he was, I can't think of the name of the place. He used to be in Orlando that was like a lot about the Bible. And he was like Aaron, dressed up like Aaron, showing you how sacrifices were done in the tabernacle. I said, how do you say that word? He said, Shekinah. I said, okay. So, Shekinah, glory of God.
So Holy Land Experience.
Holy Land Experience, not there anymore.
Closed.
Oh, it was a wonderful place to go. I liked it better than Disney World. So anyway, Jewish writers believed that it was the glory of God that he created about himself. And we see that glory in the Old Testament. You think about the pillar of fire, that was God in that pillar of fire. Or I just finished reading the book of Exodus where they made the tabernacle, which was a tent, and the glory, just this brightness of God came down and settled on that tabernacle. And that's the Shekinah glory of God. So much so, Moses would go into the tabernacle to meet with God. And he would be in there for hours, and God would be talking to him and giving him all the laws. And when Moses came out, his face glowed. He got a real tan. And his face glowed because the glory of God settled on him, rubbed off on him. And the people were afraid to see him, You could see him coming from miles away at nighttime, And you wonder if his wife say, oh, I can't sleep. It's too bright in here, because my husband's glowing. So I don't know. But that's what they believed it was, this glory of God. But this glory of God is in place for 3 days. I don't know. This light might also be considered like the light in the New Jerusalem, because John wrote to us about in the book of Revelation, the New Jerusalem that comes down, this gigantic city that comes down from heaven and settles on the earth. And it's like a cube. 1,400 miles wide, 1,400 miles long, and 1,400 miles high. And in it, God will dwell with us. And what it says here in the text, and there came unto me one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, having the brightness of God, I think he's saying. And her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. and there shall be no night there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for the Lord God giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. So here in this gigantic city, okay, it's always light, and God is that light of that city. And so these rabbis, probably not the rabbis, because they didn't believe in the New Testament, but other writers have believed that this light that shined on the earth that God created was the glory of God himself, the brightness of God himself. He doesn't tell us. Other people have different ideas. Dr. John Whitcomb, if you've ever heard of him and Henry Morris back in the 60s wrote a book called The Genesis Flood. It was a first scientific biblical presentation of Noah's flood. I read it many, many years ago. Great book. So he's a theologian and a scientist, John Whitcomb. He believed that the light on the first 3 days was some type of proto-sun, okay, which was done away with once God created the sun on day 4. So he believes there's some kind of ball, I guess, out there. Anybody know how far the sun is from the earth? 93 million miles away. So he kind of believes that before God created the sun, he kind of created something else that glowed and sent light to the earth. And it was temporary. And it was only there for 3 days, and then God got rid of it or it burned out. That was what he believed. Ken Ham believes kind of the same thing, and he writes about it there, as I mentioned in the notes. But the truth is, we don't know. God doesn't tell us everything we want to know in the Bible, does he? He tells us everything we need to know. He tells us he created light. And on that first day, he created light somewhere that's shining on the earth to give it light. But there's no sun, and there's no moon, and there's no stars yet. All we know is he created light. There was no light before that, just the darkness of space. So any questions on that? You got it figured out? You know what that light was? Okay. Let me know. I'll edit my notes. Okay. Along with Dr. John Whitcomb and Ken Ham, I'll put your name. So then the divine evaluation, when he goes on to say, and God saw the light, that it was good. Light is declared good because it accomplished its purpose of dispelling the darkness that had characterized the earth and the universe at that time. The earth was there, covered with water, but you couldn't see it because there was no light. It was just in the blackness of outer space. There are 7 benedictions of good in chapter 1. As God goes along, each thing that he creates on each day, God will look at it, kind of like an artist stepping back after he's done his masterpiece and saying, that's good. That looks really good. Have you ever done that? Have you ever made something and looked at it and said, that's pretty good? Well, that seems to be like God looked at it and he said, this is good. This is a good thing. The final statement of good is at the end of the week when he pronounced his creation, when it's all done, he said, it's very good. You know, and he can step back and he can see the universe and God can see all the stars and the galaxies and the solar system and the planet and everything that he created on the planet and all the animals and plants and humans. And God at the end of that week says, that's pretty good. That's good. Very good. Okay. Did you wonder who he's talking to? This just kind of hit me when I was reading it. Who did he say that to? Well, there is the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And we see them talking kind of amongst themselves when they create man. Let us create man in our image. Seems to be talking to the angels. They're there. This is very good. And so he's still creating. Creator also knows that the light will be of utmost importance for the life that he's going to create on the planet. We need light. He knows it'll enable photosynthesis in plants. Okay, plants need light. You don't want to plant something, where it's totally without light. It won't grow. It'll die pretty quickly. Which these plants then create oxygen on our planet and food. Okay, It regulates the sleep and wake cycles of humans and animals. Some of them are just reversed. My granddaughter has a hamster named Hammy. Hamsters are nocturnal. Okay, we've had Hammy spend the night at our house. Okay, Hammy gets up when it gets dark, says, "Everybody rise and shine." You can hear her in there, on her little treadmill going around, making a lot of noise at nighttime. So that Juliet has to wear earplugs because Hammy sleeps in her room. But basically, humans and animals, when I worked at U.S. Steel, the shop I worked in, we worked days and afternoons. But a lot of places like production areas, they had to have the round-the-clock coverage. My father-in-law retired from a steel mill early at 62 because he got so tired of working midnights. He hated it so bad. It's hard to sleep during the day. Everybody's up and around. It's light. And the neighbor boy's out there with his basketball next to your window, bouncing it on the driveway. The kids, Donna's mom's trying to shush her brother and sister, her brother and her. And it's hard because God made us really to sleep at night and be awake during the day. So that helps regulate that cycle. And we need sleep. I so often pray for Donna. I got up yesterday, I think at 3 o'clock, and Donna was still awake. She hadn't been asleep yet. And when I left around 6:15, she was still awake. And so I'm just praying, Lord, please let her get some sleep to rejuvenate her body and her mind. Have you ever gone without sleep a long time?
Oh, yeah.
You get cranky? Yeah, I do. Because the only times I had to work midnights at U.S. Steel was there an emergency, and we usually work 12-hour shifts. So, I hated working from midnight to noon. You think when the sun comes up, it's time to go home. No. Oh, no. So, yeah, got a little cranky. Anyway, so God made that. Gives us vitamin D, just helps us overall. Light provides warmth for this planet, drives weather patterns, disinfects the surfaces with UV rays. So many things light does for living creatures. And so when God said, that's good, he wasn't just looking, I think, at, okay, now I can see it. There it is. There's that planet, pointing it out to the angels. Of course, God could see it. But God said it's good because it's going to be so beneficial to what lives on the planet I'm about to create. Then we see the divine separation. It says, and God divided the light from the darkness. The division of light and darkness is the first three separations that we're going to see that God does in this chapter for life on this earth. It was not the Creator's intention that there should be perpetual light and no darkness, but that light and darkness should operate consecutively for given periods in an unchanging order. Consequently, God divided the one from the other. That is, he separated the respective spheres of activity. And so he created this light. It's now shining on the planet. And somewhere along the way, God got this planet rotating. Okay, now at first it's just covered by water. But like the moon, there's the dark side of the moon. The dark side of the moon never has light shining on it. It rotates in such a way that one side is always facing the sun. So how would you like to live on a planet like that? Half of the planet is always light and half of it is always dark. Well, God said, no, that's not what I'm going to make it. So he made it a light to shine on the earth, and he started the earth rotating somewhere on day one. And so he's going to separate the light from the darkness. And even at that, it's not totally dark, is it? We still have the stars. We still have the moon, which doesn't originate light, but it reflects light from the sun. And let me tell you, when we've got a full moon and it's shining brightly, that interferes with my scorpion hunting. It really does. There's too much light. And but God knew what he was doing in creating the light and how he created it, got the earth revolving so that they share, time periods. Light and darkness on earth regulate essential biological, ecological, and environmental processes. With light, again, powering photosynthesis. Darkness enables sleep and restores our body. It regulates the temperature on the planet. Nocturnal activity for creatures, maybe it's too dangerous for them to be out during the daytime, so they go out at night to find food. And so, whatever. God knew what he was doing. When he said, this is good, it really was good. So, the divine communication, God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. God named them. God named the light on the earth day, he also named the absence of light on the earth night. It's his prerogative to do so. He's the creator, and we still call it that. We still call it that. We're going to talk about, I just put in here for just an interesting tidbit, and we'll get into it next week. You ever hear of the French Revolution? Okay. So we're going to get into how many days is a week? 7 days. Why? Why is a week 7 days? Who started that? God did. And we still go by that. But ever hear of the French Revolution? Okay. Back in the late 1700s. Oh, those guys, they didn't believe in God. We're going to get rid of every idea of God. So they changed the calendar. Oh, no, it's not a 7-day week anymore. It's a 10-day week. And they changed the names of the days. And each month had 3 of those weeks, 30 days. And they changed the names of the months, but they kept 12 months. And we'll talk about that as go along. I'm just saying that God named it day and night. And it's stuck. It's still with us, even though at times men have tried to change it. And so he named it that. And that's a prerogative of the Creator. He passed that on kind of to Adam. God created the animals and brought them to Adam. Adam got to name them. He's like his creator. God's naming things, and then Adam, who was made in the image of God, gets to name things also. So we're out of time. We'll pick it up next week with the divine designation. The evening and the morning were the first day, okay, by God's design and by God's naming of it. So all of this is wrapped up in, and God said, let there be light. God created a universe, outer space, void of anything except it was black, one single planet covered by water. God got it rotating perfectly. Okay, the circumference of the Earth is 24,000 miles around, and it rotates 1,000 miles an hour, so it takes 24 hours to go around one time. Other planets take a lot longer, but God regulated this planet because this was the focus of his attention. And we'll talk about some of these as we go along. So any questions or comments? Got it all? And it was good. God's creation. He knew what he was doing. We need light. And he made the planet not like the moon, always one side in light and one side in darkness. He rotates it just perfectly. And so we have both, and we need both. And so it was good. So we'll finish up next week on day 1. Yes, sir.
So this light that God created, we call it the day and we call it night. So this is before the sun and the moon, right?
That's right.
So this period, did the light go dim? Did you call it night? Is that what you call it?
No. No. What we'll see here is that, and it was morning and it was evening and it was the first day. And so really it's a picture of the earth rotating on its axis, just like it does now with the sun that's out there. So I think that's the picture he's giving us. So whatever light he made, it's hanging out there, shining on the earth, and God begins this planet to rotate, and he'll keep that rotation going when he then creates the sun. We don't know what happened to that. We don't know what that light was for sure, and we don't know what happened to it. John Whitcomb said, I think it was maybe something like the sun, a ball of light. God hung out there for 3 days, and then what? He put it in his pocket? I don't know. He got rid of it because then he creates the sun. But it doesn't tell us what we want to know. When we get to heaven, write these things down, because when you get to heaven, you can ask the Lord, okay, what was that light? All right, I got a lot of questions. And he doesn't give us everything we want to know. He just tells us he created light, the vast spectrum of light, shined it on the earth, started the earth rotating morning and evening, day and night, just like we know. But then he's going to come along and create the sun.
And then when we get to heaven, we're not gonna sleep anymore, right?
Well, the question is, okay, there was no need of light in the city. So what was there need of light on the rest of the earth? Not sure. But it distinctly talks about the city because God is its light. So I have to look into that. So anything else? Yes, sir.
I'm waiting until we get to day 4 for your explanation on the sun and the moon.
Okay.
Because the moon, the amount of volume that the moon has, would fit very nicely in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering what would happen in the future when they have exploration going back to the moon, what the outcry would be when they find the first fossil.
Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? What? They probably wouldn't tell us. Oh, you put that in your pocket. Bury that. Don't say anything about it. I don't know.
They give it to Smithsonian, they put it in the back room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Along
all
with the Ark of the Covenant.
Ark of the Covenant. I mean, the Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you saw that movie at the end, all those boxes. Yeah, put that in the box. Put it in the shelf back there. We'll look at that later. So, yeah, what a creator, isn't he?
Yeah.
And we're just getting started. But he spoke. I don't know how far you've traveled around this planet. It's pretty big, isn't it? God spoke, and it was there. Wow, the power of God. And the wisdom as he then begins to put everything on the earth. That's the God we know, who can do anything, and who knows you and knows me individually, who loves us, who died for us, wants a relationship with us, and wants to answer our prayers. Wow. It's amazing when you begin to think about who and what God really is. And he knows me. Knows me. Anything else? All right, we are headed to Culver's to talk about what light, whatever you want to talk about. Continue our fellowship. So if you want to go with us, we're going down to Culver's for lunch. We'll be there usually for another hour or so. Enjoy some food and fellowship. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for being here. Father, thank you for this time together. Thank you for your word. Lord, you are amazing as we, Lord, take the time to try to look deeper into things we've known maybe all our lives. Lord, it just shows how awesome you are. Lord, teach us, bless us as we grow in this knowledge of you, and equip us, Lord, to give answers to those around us who have been deceived by Satan's lies of evolution. Thank you for loving us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. God bless you.
Order.